Hello here, and welcome again to this edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Thank you for everybody for tuning in here, our statewide affiliates in Kearney, Grand Island, Fremont, Lincoln, and Omaha, as well as everyone watching us on YouTube. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe and follow us at huskeronline.com. But guys, let's get into the opening headlines with Stephen M. Sipple and Robin Washett as you kind of look at things with Nebraska right now. I think the big headline of the week, at least to me, has been the buzz around Dylan Raiola. Things really ramped up a lot, Sip, and a lot of it just stemmed on a couple of people making more predictions for Nebraska with Raiola. And you look, I think we both agree that Nebraska is in a great position with Raiola. But, I think we learned a few more things as the weeks moved on, kind of where things sit. And the bottom line is this thing is far from over.
Yeah. I mean, we can speak authoritatively about this. I talked to Dominic on Monday night at length. We had probably a half-hour discussion. And, I'd say Nebraska's in a good position. But he made it clear, and he said, he said, go ahead and say what you want to say publicly. He said it's wide open. That he wouldn't be surprised if some other teams that haven't been mentioned jump in. He stressed
Clemson or Oregon.
He mentioned Penn State,
Penn
for
State,
instance.
okay.
But he mentioned a few others that, like he said, there's some that aren't being mentioned. You know who's being mentioned? Georgia's being mentioned. Nebraska's being mentioned. USC is the one I really watch now. Oregon's been mentioned. TCU's been mentioned. What he stressed is two things: that it's wide open. Stressed it, said it 3 or 4 times. It's wide open. Just say it's wide open. And the other thing that he stresses, they're enjoying it. They enjoy this process. It's not laborious. You hear some some recruits say that, oh God, I'm just getting so tired of it. He said, what's there to get tired of? You're talking to Lincoln Riley. We just had I don't know if it was I don't know how these rules work, guys, Robin and Sean, but he said, we had a Zoom with Prime. He goes,
that's legal as long as you initiate it.
Yeah. He said, it's fun. It's fun talking to these guys. So Dominic did not go to the NIL function.
And that's notable, I think, because he had an invite to attend the 1890 event that was held at a prominent Nebraska Boosters home in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have raised a lot of antennas if Dominic Raiola attended the Nebraska NIL event in Scottsdale with Trev Alberts and Matt Rule there, which he can technically, as an alumnus and a former player, he could go to the event like that. Dylan could not.
Right.
But I think it would have been very notable if Dominic Raiola was at this function hanging out with Matt Rule and Trev Alberts all night.
Well, and the most prominent boosters in Nebraska's realm, So I don't know. I don't know what Dominic, that's just not really his scene. Like it's not just something he wanted to do. He said, if somebody wants me to play golf, I'll do it, but just go to a party. He wasn't about it. It wasn't anything. I wouldn't read into that at all.
Starting with his recent buzz, there was some speculation that, a decision time frame might be ramped up awfully quickly, even like before the spring game. I know that just hearing from what you said, seems like that might not be the case. Sean, are you still thinking maybe in June? I know you had reported something like that, like maybe this summer.
It's fluid, as everything is with recruiting.
Right.
And it can always change. But yeah, he's got the visits in March. And I know Georgia, at least last week, was under the impression or feel that there may be another round of visits in June, that this is going to not be over. This potentially could not be over in the spring.
Okay.
But that would be extremely late for a quarterback. Typically, mid-May is kind of the Mendoza line for quarterbacks to come off the board. And if you're not somewhere in mid-May, then you're moving down the board trying to find your next guy, your next guy, your next guy. And we've seen Nebraska have to do that over the years, maybe where they miss on their top guy and they move on a new name or another name in May because so the dominoes for the quarterbacks once March opens up, and March will allow what's called unofficial visitors again on campus. Once the unofficial visits can start happening again, that's when you're going to see the run of quarterbacks probably start to come first.
Okay. Just the only thing I would add from conversation with Dominic, and again, this is, if I go back over the last 10 to 12 conversations I've had with Dominic, he never says this, but my takeaway is I always come away thinking it's Georgia, Nebraska, USC. That's what it always sounds like to me. The last several conversations, and it kind of did the other night, except I'd never heard him say that the words that it's wide open, and I'd never heard him say that, somebody else could jump in that you haven't seen. So that was sort of new to me.
Penn State would be interesting, but there is a big opportunity for a quarterback there.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You figure Sean Clifford has been there literally starting since 2020.
Clifford's gone.
He's
right?
gone now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
finally.
29 years old. So.
I think he played in the 011 game with Matt McGloin.
Yeah, he was there with Franco Harris. But yeah. So that's it. I mean, it was interesting, and I don't know the timeline. You guys, I haven't dealt with recruiting for as long as you have. The timeline thing, it doesn't seem like they're in a hurry.
Well, timelines don't really apply to the number one player in the nation. You know what the timeline is? When he wants it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he's
Robin,
got the leverage.
You deal with this in basketball. Like when you're this high, to an extent, there's probably 5 or 10 players in basketball that can do the same thing.
Yeah, and basketball's a little different to where like the majority of like your top level guys are off the board in the November signing period, but there are guys that use that as leverage to where they intentionally hold off from signing. Like even if they might feel good about a school, they hold off just to see that next round of recruitment and see what else becomes available to them. So, I mean, there's certain players that can pull this off. And when you have this many schools that are all in on you, I don't blame him for taking his time. Go enjoy the process, take some visits, get wined and dined and all that stuff. Like I think when you're that level of a prospect, you can do that sort of thing. And as long as you don't draw it on too long, then I think it's a good balance to have.
Yeah, you don't want to affect the schools like Nebraska.
Right.
You don't want to string them along, say no, and it's June and they got nobody. I think, aren't you mindful of that a little bit?
I'm not as mindful as I used to be because of the portal.
Oh, good point.
Like that you can just find Jeff Sims.
Good point.
Casey Thompson.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find fairly serviceable plan Bs in the portal. It may not be exactly what you want. I mean, it's like going shopping at,
oh boy,
here we go. TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something.
Don't
you know what?
Anybody.
Great deals there.
I'm going to, this Under Armour sweatshirt, I'm going to make it work. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It may not be the one I wanted initially. That was at Shields, but I'll make this one work.
Let's not offend people. The other part of this was Monken that I wanted to bring up. Monken, the Baltimore Ravens, the Georgia offensive coordinator, goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Does that have an impact? I will tell you this, and the part of this is good because we do have direct line to Dominic. I would tell you he's never, ever mentioned Monken in, 40 conversations. He's never said the words Monken or the word Monk. Is it Todd Monken? It's always Kirby. I mean, Kirby's the one.
It's his show.
Yeah, Kirby's leading the charge on Dylan Raiola. It was never. He's never mentioned Monken. Not that he doesn't I don't think he has anything against him. I just don't know how prominent he was in this equation.
Well, in Georgia's program, like you said, I mean, it's Kirby's smart. It's his. They run the offense the way he wants. They play. I mean, everything that they do. He's kind of the Nick Saban of Georgia.
Absolutely. Well, the fact that they immediately hired an internal candidate, Mike Bobo. I mean, like. It was, I'm sure, very much discussed in the recruiting process that this is likely going to happen and this is our plan. So don't worry. Like we're not having any massive changes. We're still going to be Georgia. We're still going to run the offense that we're recruiting you to.
Yeah. In fact, if I was Nebraska, if I were a Nebraska coach or, if I was a hardcore Nebraska fan and I'm following this daily, my principal concern would be Kirby Smart because of what he's doing at Georgia. Back-to-back national championships. They never lose. Their defense is ridiculous. Their offense is ridiculous, but it's also Kirby is a masterful recruiter himself. I mean, he's a great recruiter. That's the thing that would bother me. That's the thing that would concern me the most. That Kirby, and read any article about how George has risen. A lot of it's just Kirby's prowess as a recruiter.
Well, they won the national championship. They brought Dylan Raiola on the phone via Zoom.
I think pretty soon after the game.
Like in the locker room.
Yeah.
Like, so like that's, I mean, you're like, you just had this high moment and you're like, you know what, let's get Dylan Raiola to be a part of this moment now. I mean, it's
Kirby.
That's how you do it.
It's
So.
4D chess right there.
4D.
Well, Bobo and Kirby,
level.
if I'm not mistaken, I mean, they were roommates. I mean, those guys are.
I don't know that.
I know that from somebody else. Those guys, along with Will Muschamp, I mean, they've been so like it's really a connection to Kirby. Mike Bobo and Kirby's relationship goes back for many years. So yeah, I think and he's a great. Mike Bobo's a great coach.
On the good news for Nebraska, Dom does like talking ball with Satterfield. There's a good connection there. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the timeline is. Dylan, I don't expect anything to happen before he visits, though. Could something happen before March 24th?
No. I mean,
I wouldn't think so.
And he's going to go to Georgia the week before.
Okay.
But you got to wonder if USC is going to get another one. And then these aren't officials; these are unofficials. So he could still do officials if he wanted to.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley's turned it up in this recruitment. There's a while there that I don't think Lincoln Riley was doing a very good job with him, but I'd say in the last, several weeks he's done really well.
Yeah, all you got to do is say I've coached 3 of the last 6 Heisman Trophy winners.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. What more do you need?
All right, when we come back, I want to talk about mat drills. I want to talk about I had an event last week with Casey Thompson, MJ Sherman, Ed Foley, Billy Kemp. Learned a lot of insight from those guys. We'll share all of that next here. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we are in knee-deep of winter conditioning for Nebraska football. Before we get to those headlines and discussions, this segment of the program brought to you by Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, 30th and Yankee Hill Road. And I was at St. Michael's on Thursday, stopped in Tanner's after St. Michael's and enjoyed.
What'd you enjoy?
Some wings, because I didn't have time to eat. I mean, like I was, so busy with the event we had going on, but
wings is food.
It was great just to unplug, watch a little basketball that was on, and great place to go in and watch the Husker game. I know these next few weeks, Nebraska's at home with some Saturday and Sunday games, but if you can't make it, get into Tanner's, 30th and Yankee Hill Road, get some wings, cold beer, several beers on tap, great sandwiches and burgers as well, 30th and Yankee Hill Road. But I want to get to that event at St. Michael's I did on Thursday night. It was really cool. I had Casey Thompson, Billy Kemp, MJ Sherman there, as well as special teams coordinator Ed Foley, and then recruiting staffer Vince Ginta was there as well. So we had a full night, 500 people there. And it was an engaged audience. And that's the thing. Like, look, we've been through a number of changes now in Nebraska in our time doing this job, but there's always, like right now, there's always just like such a sense of hope, sense of optimism, but people really like this staff. Like when you're out and about, it's still very much in the honeymoon stage of things. But you can just feel it. And Ed Foley, he's great.
Wow, look at that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Ruff, the former Creighton Blue Jay, was there because we were raising money for somebody that was married to his cousin, or his wife's cousin was who we were raising money for, who's suffering from ALS. And Darren Ruff now plays in the bigs, but he played for the Phillies. And Ed Foley took a selfie with Darren Ruff.
Huge Phillies fan.
And he sent it to all his East Coast buddies, like, guess who this is? And like, guy goes, Darren Ruff. It's like those East Coast dudes know their baseball. But Casey Thompson shared some very interesting things about his health.
Mm-hmm.
He's on week 10 right now of a 16-week recovery. What is
shoulder surgery, right?
Shoulder
Mm-hmm.
surgery.
Yeah.
So I said, does that mean you're going to play in the spring, like the spring game? And he goes, let's not say that yet. But he gave at least a sliver of hope that he could be out there doing some things during the spring.
Yeah, because you wrote that he could be back throwing at some level on March 27th.
The week of March 27th.
Yeah, so March 27th, that would be about a week into spring.
Week two of spring.
Yeah. So how much, I mean, would he go under center? Would he partake in team drills? I don't know if he'd do that stuff or not, but it's interesting. It'd be good if he, I don't know. I mean, he might look at Jeff Sims every day and think, I need to get back. But on the other hand, you don't want to rush it too much, right?
And him and Jeff Sims, they've developed a really good relationship, is what Casey said. I mean, they're very close. And look, I said this on your show earlier this week, Sip. This is the 5th head coach Casey Thompson's played for when you count Mickey.
Right.
He played for Tom Herman. He played for Steve Sarkisian, Scott Frost, and then Mickey Joseph, and now Matt Rule.
Man. So, I mean, I think that's certainly encouraging because I think you need that you need that on-field competition. If you're legitimately going to have a quarterback battle, those guys need to be on the field together. And I don't care what the capacity is, but just having Casey able to be on the field and not sitting there in street clothes while Jeff Sims is out there running around, doing his thing. I think that's important to just, for one, give Nebraska a better evaluation of their 2 quarterbacks, but 2, push each other. I think that competition, the longer that can go, the better for everyone involved, particularly those 2 guys. So that's probably some of the best news we've heard as far as that conversation is concerned, that there was some talk that Casey might miss all the spring. Now you're talking about him maybe even playing in the spring game. Like that's a significant development.
Let's face it too. This is not necessarily just an either or discussion. I mean, you need 2. Last year they needed 3. Yeah. There's been a lot of years where you need 2. Some years where
if you run the quarterback, especially.
Yeah, where you need 3. It's not. I don't necessarily even look at it as some guy's going to win the job and the other guy's going to stand and watch all season. It doesn't work that way all that often anymore.
When's the last time a quarterback has made it wire to wire? It never happened under Scott Frost. I mean,
did Tanner
Lee?
Yeah. Did he make it wire to wire
in 17?
Yeah. Did he make it wire to wire?
I think he did.
Yeah, I think he did.
Because POB would have been his backup.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he made it wire to
wire.
Well, Tommy didn't make it wire to wire.
Now in 2017, though, Tanner missed Caleb missed Tanner Lee missed a half at Minnesota.
Okay.
Remember?
And there wasn't a talk about
they pulled him out at halftime.
O'Brien starting the Penn State game. Didn't he have a whole bunch of family there and then he didn't play at all?
Yeah, that's right.
But the Bill Moose Minnesota game where you could hear him yell in the press box.
Oh, no. Just stop. That
wasn't Moose. It wasn't
not Moose. It wasn't. That was one of the biggest myths ever. That was not Bill Moose.
Don't ruin it.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, Moose has told me unequivocally that was not him yelling.
Well, of course, you don't want to be the oh no guy.
No, it wasn't Moose. I knew when it happened, it wasn't Moose.
But yeah, so Tanner Lee missed.
Moose isn't that.
Missed at least a half at Minnesota. Like he was out of that game for Patrick O'Brien.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't happen.
So technically not wire to wire.
Tommy Armstrong, his last year missed games. I mean, Tommy Armstrong missed games like almost every year.
Taylor Martinez missed a lot of games, and they were down to number 3 Kellogg at in that 2013 season. Yeah, so I don't look at it as either or.
That'd be a good research project. Who's the last Nebraska quarterback that's made it wire to wire? Well, what full year did Zach Lee start? Because in 09.
Yeah, 09.
09.
Split.
There was a terrible offense.
Cody Green played in 09, guys. Cody Green played. Cody Green ends that. I mean, they split.
Yeah, they did. Yep. You're right. Cody Green played. You're right, Sean.
And then in 10, we thought it was going to be Zach Lee, then it was Taylor.
So Zach Taylor?
No.
06?
Zach Taylor. 06, 07. Or excuse me, not 07. 06.
Yeah, Zach Taylor definitely played a full year.
Yeah, he did. Zach made it a full
Tommy
year.
Armstrong, I think, maybe made one full season.
At any rate, they have 2 guys,
Sorry,
and maybe more. And I don't know who. Maybe they have somebody that's going to emerge and push those top 2. I mean, Torres. They talk very high. Rule twice has mentioned Heinrich Harburg. You never know. One of those other guys could move up the chain a little bit and push Casey and Sims, but I don't anticipate that actually.
So I was told just in the early workouts that they're kind of blown away how much potential Harburg has and the fact that he was kind of shelved by Whipple. And like they did miles per hour and some of the things they test. And he has one of the fastest miles per hour on the team running.
And running. Okay.
You know who number 1 was?
Yeah.
Tommy Hill.
And
then Gabe Irvin was number 2.
Fastest.
And this is their speed. Like they're all about the variable.
I mean, think about it. That's not, you didn't even mention Ramir. I mean, Ramir can go too.
But I'm talking about when they measured speed, miles per hour. Gabe Irvin was the fastest of the running backs.
Tommy Hill was the fastest overall.
For running backs. Okay. Tommy Hill, we think he's still a receiver.
Yeah, what are they going to do with him? They got to get him on the field. They got to find some way to
That
use
will get
that
him on the field.
athleticism.
That speed will get him on the field.
You'd hope.
Yeah, because that thing went south, and I think from what him and Fisher, things kind of turned.
I don't know what happened.
Something happened that just kind of turned things around, where he just all of a sudden went from having his name etched in the stadium, as Fisher said on the record, to being a receiver like 2 weeks later.
Well, he had a couple real bad games. I remember the Pro
Oklahoma.
Football Focus. Yeah, that was the one. He was just getting torched. Like they were intentionally going after him.
Georgia Southern wasn't his best night either.
So I mean, like that, he kind
Then
of
they went to-
participated.
Georgia
in
Southern,
that.
I thought was really stark. They were
Yeah.
going right after Tommy.
Yes.
and then they went to Hartstug.
They went to him in place of Tommy Hill. Also at that night, Billy Kemp, you talked to Billy Kemp, and it looks like he's going to be the return man.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Foley said he's got to win it, but hinted that like this guy can do it. I mean, he's fielded
160.
Live balls.
Yeah, he's fielded 140 punts at UVA, Virginia. He 64 returns and 76 fair catches. That's what you had in your rundown, Sean.
So those are, I mean, that's a pretty good. I mean, there's nobody at Nebraska that's come even close to returning that many punts.
No.
Like who? I mean, you could add up like the last 7 or 8 years, and I don't know if you'd have 64 return punts. Take away the DeMornay Pearsonell era. After DeMornay Pearsonell, I don't know if there's been anyone that's even come close to those numbers.
They got to get back to doing that.
And Ed Foley said he wants to average 10 per return and have 4. So have about 30 to 40 punt return yards a game, which would eliminate 3 or 4 needed first downs for the offense.
That'd be great. That'd be great just to see returns again.
Mhm.
10-yard return. Man, at Nebraska now, if there's a 10-yard return, it's sort of jaw-dropping. Like,
Mhm.
did we just see a 10-yard return?
Yeah. And when you just look at it, like you're starting a drive with a first down.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it that way, like a 10-yard return is a big deal.
Big.
It's a big
I
deal.
mean, look what it did for like the Chiefs
Yeah.
in their playoff run here.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, in Super Bowl, I mean, that return late was gigantic.
And then they had one against Cincinnati too.
Right. Yeah, they did.
I mean, Nebraska has lost that part of. I mean, look what DeMornay's returns did in Bo's second to final year, or that was his final year, right? When they beat Iowa and he had the returns at Iowa.
Yeah, it was 2014. That was 2014. He had the
Mhm.
2 long returns against Iowa. But yeah, DeMornay, it became a situation where you didn't want to go get popcorn when the opposing team punted because you wanted to see what happened with DeMornay. Boy, it'd be nice to get back to that. It was exciting.
Now the return game has changed so much with the way the directional kicking, the rugby style, like
Mhm. It
that's
has.
more prevalent than ever. And so, I mean, just opportunities are a lot fewer
That's true.
than they used to be, and people just don't boom them down the field.
Right.
Like the specialists are so good, especially in the Big Ten. Like Big Ten punters are elite, like
Yeah.
the best in the country.
Yeah.
And so,
It's harder to return.
we'll see how many chances they get, but when you get those chances, you have to maximize them.
I wish it was like the pros. You can't do those spread punts, right? It's like a pretty.
No, you can only use one formation, I think, in the NFL.
And I know they'll never
maybe 2.
do this in college football, but it would really make it better. Like the spread punt has like destroyed the punt return
Yeah.
because you make sure the guy doesn't catch it.
Yeah, I mean, it just screws up everything with the blocking. Like you can't even set up a return because you have to account for the punter as a runner.
Also at St. Michael's, you learned that Chief Borders has been impressive.
Yeah, I think he's just been a voice behind the scenes from everything I've heard and been really good. MJ Sherman too. I mentioned another newcomer. We had him there, and I asked him specifically what will his role be. And I mean, I think they want to move him around, and he can play his hand on the edge. He can play in space. But after seeing Tony White speak at the Omaha Metro Coaches Clinic, it's going to be key that he wants to find matchups in this defense and put his best player on your weak players and create plays. And I can see MJ Sherman very much fitting that role of a guy that Tony White's going to move around.
What you got to see with Sherman is if he's regained all his explosion. That's the question. That was the question at Georgia. Had a knee injury in high school. Is he the explosive player that can make those sort of difference-making plays?
All right, when we come back, Nebraska basketball 3-1 in the month of February. Now they're home until March 5th with 3 pivotal games at Pinnacle Bank Arena. We'll get Robin Washut's thoughts on the big win at Rutgers and get you ready for Sunday's game against Maryland. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Robin Washett, Steve Sipple, as it was a huge night for Nebraska basketball on Tuesday. Fred Hoiberg's squad moves to 3-1 now in the month of February, winning at Rutgers 82-72, a place, Jimmy John's Arena, Jersey Mike's Arena. Jersey Mike's. I just got totally canceled by the sponsors there. Jersey Mike's Arena. 82-72. Robin, I saw your prediction and you kind of had the I'll see it when I believe it. You didn't pick Nebraska. You picked.
I had them covering. I had them losing by 13 on a 13.5 point spread. So don't say I didn't believe.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
I thought you would have hedged it and maybe made it like 6. But Rutgers is tough at home. I agree.
So there's a list of reasons why I wasn't nearly as confident as our own Steven Sipple. For one, they hadn't won back-to-back games since beating Queens and Iowa before and after Christmas break. So there's a long run of inconsistency. 2, they've struggled on the road, struggled mightily, especially in recent games. 3, they are a team that is now dependent on offense, playing against the best defensive team, not only in the Big Ten, but in one of the best in the country. Oh. And after that, they were 14-point, and I think it closed as 14-point dogs. So there were very few people in Vegas that thought they had a chance. So that's what made that performance so stunning. Not the fact that they won the game, but the manner in which they did it. The fact that they went and scored 82 points, shot almost 60% from the field, tied their season high 3-pointers at a 40% plus clip, and just did things to Rutgers that teams don't go to the rack and do to Rutgers. Like that was, reading some of the tweets from Rutgers beat writers, New Jersey media, they were, talk about stunned. They were more stunned than anybody. They didn't think that was even remotely close to having a chance of happening. And Nebraska went in there and literally imposed their will offensively. Yeah, they hit some tough shots, but they also created a lot of good looks. They hit their threes, which opened up everything underneath, and they were able to shoot 74% inside of the arc. So, I mean, again, the recipe that they used was a script that hardly ever happens at or against Rutgers, especially at home. So, I know that the winning is certainly a surprise, but the manner in which they did it was the most surprising for me.
Well, they got hot. Now, what's happened is Keisei Tominaga has changed the discussion for Nebraska. Now that's 4 straight games of 20 plus. He's real.
Double figures in 9 of his last 10.
Yeah, he's not. This is no more a gimmick thing. He's become one of the Big Ten's better scorers. I don't mind saying it. He is.
He leads the conference in scoring over the last 4 games.
Yeah, he's
going into Wednesday.
Yeah, he's not going away either. He doesn't, and it's not just that he gets hot from the outside and buries some threes. It's not that anymore. He takes it off the dribble to the hoop. He moves without the ball, makes those back cuts. He's a pain now, and that helps those other guys. It helps Derek Walker and Sam Griesel a lot.
Look at the other night. I mean, he didn't start hot. He missed his first 3 shots and didn't score until just over 6 minutes left in the first half. But you know how he scored? He took it to the rim, and I think that part of it is the biggest difference with Keisei, to where he's not just the jack up 8 3-pointers, and that's all he's going to bring offensively. He's getting to the hoop, and he's scoring inside of the arc more than certainly he ever has at Nebraska. And that 2-part dimension of his game has really, I think, allowed him to take off to where teams, if they close out aggressively on him, he's going to pump fake and take it straight to the rim. And because you have him now as a legitimate threat, and if you can pair that with a CJ Wilcher, whoever, that allows Nebraska to be one of the most efficient teams at the rim in the conference. And so, with the way that they've had to transition from being a defensive-oriented team that is just trying to do just enough on offense, when they had Bandamel and Gary, when those 2 guys went out, they were forced to flip the script and become an offensive-driven team. Keisei Tominaga is at the forefront of that move, but because of his success, it's allowed Derek Walker to be more, I won't say efficient because he's still turning over the ball a lot, but he's scoring He's scoring at a much more efficient level. Sam Griesel has really been able to dictate the pace and keep things under control. And then again, when you get that next guy, whether it's CJ or Sam Hoiberg or whoever that can be that next scorer, that's a compliment that Nebraska hasn't had on offense really in a long time when it comes to having that many people factoring into their success.
Here's a question. What if Bandamel doesn't get hurt? If Gary doesn't get hurt, is Tominagi even getting these minutes?
I don't think so.
Great question.
I don't think so.
That's a fascinating thing.
No, because they were playing him that much out of necessity.
Right.
And now that he's been able to produce, like he's obviously earned those minutes, but I mean, he wasn't playing those types of minutes.
And I would
because that
say-
wasn't what the style they were trying to play. Like he
Right.
can't defend at the level in which they were needing to defend to win games.
But Casey, now one thing we don't necessarily, we're not aligned on, Rob. I still think they play good defense.
They
K-
do,
Casey,
but
is-
not nearly what they were doing earlier.
No,
They were
no,
one of the
no.
better defensive teams in the conference for a while.
But Bruce Weber was very complimentary last night of Nebraska's defense. I still think they play very good defense. I'd say very good defense. They still now
Close
you
out.
could say, oh, Michigan rattled them. I mean, Michigan got after them offensively, shot a big percentage. I don't know though. I still see a lot of effort. And Rutgers, the reason I thought Nebraska could win the game is because Rutgers is a bad offense. I mean, they do not.
They're bold.
They're an elite defense,
Bad
below average to bad offense.
Yeah, and Nebraska plays pretty good defense. And if Nebraska, I thought, could put pressure on them and be up double digits with 10 to go, it's going to be really hard for Rutgers to overcome that. And that's what happened.
Well, and the difference too was turnovers. That Rutgers was doing what Rutgers does. They were forcing a bunch. They had forced 8 turnovers in the first half, but they only converted that to 5 points.
No.
And so they weren't able to take advantage of Nebraska's mistakes. They allowed Nebraska to hang around, and then their offense, when K-State started getting going, everything started clicking for them.
We're talking Nebraska basketball here with Robin Washett on the Husker Online Show. And Robin, this sets the stage now. You got 3 coveted weekend afternoon home games in a row here. Nebraska's home Sunday, then Saturday, and then Sunday. Is it 3?
Sunday the 19th, Saturday the 25th, and Tuesday the 28th.
Oh, yeah, they have the game against Michigan State. I'm sorry. Then the Iowa game is a road game, but they're home for 3 in a row. I mean, we're going to see record 2013 type crowds down here at the arena.
2 straight weekend home games,
It'll
Big
be
Ten home games.
Big
Games where people that live in other parts of the state can easily get here and get home. I mean, this is set up. Like, let me tell you guys, this game on Saturday when we were here, when they won against Wisconsin, I have never seen the traffic so bad leaving the arena in years.
Really?
Like, usually we get home in 15 minutes after a game. It took us over 45 minutes to get out of
So
there.
people are hungry.
I know.
This is a hungry fan.
I've been
base.
waiting for something like this.
Yeah, hungry.
Meaningful February basketball.
Right.
I mean,
They're hungry. And the other part of it is they like the team. It's a likable team.
absolutely.
Really likable. I mean,
Keisei is as likable of a player. Like, can you in Japan? How much buzz is this getting? Are you able to
He's
like?
huge.
Is it?
He's a huge deal.
Can
in
you pick
Japan.
up on anything that's going on over there with him? Like,
Yeah, and look at every time I tweet about him, I get a bunch of Japanese characters like quote tweeting me. Like I don't know what they mean, but I'm getting.
you should look into some like Japanese language stuff.
Well,
Rob.
Twitter does have a translation. It's very loosely translated, but
You could market yourself to Japan.
I know. I'll bet you I get retweeted in Japan more than any Nebraska
You might be
media
sort of a star over there. Actually.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, probably. But like, okay, so Casey, obviously, huge fan favorite. Sam Griesel, the hometown hero. The guy that came back to
Sam
Lincoln.
Hoiberg.
Sam
Sam
Hoiberg,
Hoiberg.
Lincoln Pius guy, coach's son. Derek Walker,
Yeah.
the guy that has been here since day one, that has developed and been the anchor
Downhill
for this
Derek.
team. I mean. And then young guys like Jamarcus Lawrence, like he's like you want to look for reasons to get excited about
Oh,
the future, like guy like that. So I mean, go down the list.
Yeah.
They got guys you can cheer for, and that
They
was
do.
to Fred's credit. That was one of the things he said. Fans are going to like this team.
Yeah, he was right.
And now the best part is they're not just a bunch of likable guys. They're playing well, and they're giving fans a reason to get excited and cheer for them on the court, and producing signature victories that they haven't had in a long time. To where a month ago, if I would have told you that we're talking about paths for Nebraska to make the NIT or maybe even the NCAA tournament, probably would have laughed in my face.
I
Well,
would've.
here they are.
I would have.
You would have.
But I'll tell you, and I look at it through the eyes of an opposing coach. That's how I've been looking at this team in the last 2 weeks. They're tough. They're tough to defend. I mean, with Casey going, now it gets real.
Absolutely. He changes everything.
Yeah.
He's arguably the most difficult half-court defensive assignment in the conference.
Right. Okay. Then
Because when he crosses half court, he's a threat to shoot.
right, and he's fascinating because he moves all the time and
Mhm.
he cramps up. They have to have a jug of water.
But then you have one of the best facilitating bigs in the conference in Derek
Right.
Walker.
who can get to the basket.
You've got a 6'7", 215-pound point guard.
And then
I mean,
when
like
Wilcher, if like last night or at Rutgers,
he's an X factor.
Wilcher goes off.
X
It's
factor.
like, well, now what do you do?
I know.
Yeah, I mean, now you're in a
That's how you go to Rutgers and drop 82.
yeah. Now you're in a defensive quandary with 4 or 5 guys going.
See if they can keep it going.
Yeah, the roster politics of a year ago too, like the fact that Casey couldn't even really get on the court, and that team was far
He
worse.
started games last year.
But this wasn't a fact. I mean, they had multiple pros on their roster last year,
Mhm.
whether overseas or
Mhm.
NBA.
They did.
They did.
And this team, I don't know if you can necessarily say they have
It's different.
different, and they're better. Like it just,
It is. They're
and
better.
people like it better.
Yeah.
Like I think, like look, we tried doing the McGowns thing, and they're great. We love the McGowns, but this type of style seems to fit the fan base,
Yeah.
the state better right now.
I mean, like a guy like Trey would have fit with this mold, I think.
I think Bryce would fit. I mean, so I don't like that. Do that to those guys. Those guys got good late too. Keep in mind that team last year
They were tough out.
was
late.
really good
Back to
late.
back top 25 wins during the year.
They were good late, and Verge was unguardable at times late last year. So I don't go too hard.
But again,
on
it
those
was too
guys.
little too late.
Yeah, it was.
They figured it out a lot earlier this year,
Yeah.
and now they're in a situation where they're playing for something.
All right. When we come back, we'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washad, and let's bring in Abby Barmore as we take your questions in the mailbag. Abby, lots of questions this week. Where are you going to start us out at?
All right, here we go. Besides the offensive line, which position groups do you see taking the biggest step forward and the biggest step backward from last year?
I'm saying tight end for forward. I just think, I know they were pretty good
last year.
with Vokalek, but he got hurt. Like Vokalek at Northwestern in Ireland, if that Vokalek would have played the whole year, it would have been a different story. But I think Fedoni with maybe Arik Gilbert, by the way, I learned that at St.
Is it
Michael's.
Arik?
Yes.
All right, good.
I've heard Arik, Eric, and guess who told me the proper pronunciation? MJ Sherman. He referred to him as Arik.
He would know.
Okay, good. Thank you.
But I'm going to say tight end as the one that's going to take the biggest step forward.
Okay, I can say assuredly which one will take the biggest step forward. Fullback. Right. The one that I would say if you're concerned, would be edge rusher. Taking a step back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tanner, Mathis, Garrett Nelson.
Right. I mean, it's going to be hard not to take a step back. Those guys are all pretty good.
You're banking on Sherman.
Substantial production and experience.
Sherman, Borders, Jamari Butler, Blaze Gunnerson.
Yeah, those are your guys.
Now, I know they got a lot of guys back, like the same cast, but what about running back? I mean, the fact that you have a proven commodity in Anthony Grant, but you get A.J. Allen back.
It could take a step forward.
And you get Gabe Irvin, who's, just we said, one of the fastest guys on the entire team, with Ramir Johnson, who's a veteran guy. I mean, I think
should be good.
Just the overall complement of that group, I think you feel a lot better about it.
It's interesting
compared to what you did a year ago.
That's a real intriguing one because they were pretty good, but they could take a big step. You're right. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the mobility factor of the quarterback will help the running back. If it is Jeff Sims and they do want to run him more, that helps the backs because you got to account for the running back and the quarterback to run the football, where under Mark Whipple, it was a straight handoff game. And it was a little easier to know and defend the Nebraska running attack under the Mark Whipple offense.
The other position where you wonder if it would drop back a little bit as receiver without Palmer. I mean, they're bringing in Billy Kemp. He doesn't have that explosive speed like Palmer. Who does? Nobody. I don't see a receiver on this roster that has that. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. Kemp's going to catch 50 plus balls though. But it's going to look different. It's not going to look like Palmer.
There's going to be a lot more shorter controlled routes.
Sticky routes.
And you're not going to see near the you'll see deep shots, but they feast. Nebraska's offense won games with like 19 minutes time of possession.
Deep shots.
Can Tommy Hill be that guy?
He's got to make a catch first.
Well, I'm just saying.
Sean makes fun of
you
that
want to
all
talk
the
about
time.
speed.
He's a good receiver. Yeah, I don't know.
He's got to be he's the fastest guy in the room, right? So
yeah, you wonder, could he be I don't want to go there where he could be a Trey Palmer. It's way too.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
going to go that far.
Right.
But can he be a guy that you can, hey, go run a go route, beat your guy one-on-one? Like, I wonder if he's got that in him.
Well, I think he tracks the ball pretty well. He did play. He was a receiver in high school.
All right, next one. If you could pick one former player to come back for a weekend and spend time around Nebraska's staff and team, like Randy Gregory did recently, who would you pick and why?
Ndamukong Suh.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just think his presence, his visits to the program have been fairly limited since the Jordan Westerkamp Hail Mary game. I mean, that was like that was one of Bo Pelini's that was one of his final years here. But just to get Sue back more around the program, I think would be the guy I'd want back.
Yeah, he's your biggest selling point. I would, beyond that, I go with Mir Abdullah because he played with Matt Rule in the NFL. I mean, like, he's one of the few Huskers that has actually played for Matt Rule. So if you want him to come and talk to the team about what it takes to be successful in his type of program and what this staff is going to demand from you, I mean, he's got firsthand experience from that. And he's an NFL player and one of the better running backs Nebraska's had in the past decade.
I'll throw out a wild card name that wouldn't be expected, Kyle Vanden Bosch. And the reason I do that is because Gruden John used to put up in his team room film of Vanden Bosch playing for another team. It wasn't Gruden's team, but this is the player who plays the hardest in the NFL. And he showed clip after clip of Vanden Bosch. Vanden Bosch doesn't come up very often when you talk about Nebraska's all-time best defenders, but he probably should. And he'd be a good guy to bring back here, and I think he would come back.
The problem with Vanden Bosch was he was the guy after the guys.
Yes, he was.
You know, and when you go after Wittstrom and Peters and those types of players, like you're not going to. I mean, no one's going to top those type of guys.
Yeah, Barrett Rudis talked about how Barrett would have to line up on field goal as like a tackle. You know, he'd have to do a slide step, and he talked about going against Vanden Bosch in the NFL, and he said Vanden Bosch it was just a matter of how deep Vanden Bosch could push him into the backfield.
Is it realistically possible for Nebraska ball to make the NIT tournament or even the NCAA?
NIT for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely in the cards. You get to, 2
more wins,
17 wins. I think you're in the conversation. 18, you're a lock.
What's the record right now?
12-13.
Okay.
So, there's work to do, no doubt about it. You got these 4, and then you got to do some more work in Chicago. But it's on the table. Absolutely, it's on the table. We just talked about how favorable this back end of the stretch is, how well they're playing right now. Yeah, and NCAA tournament, that's a much bigger Hail Mary. I think 19 minimum you got to get to, which
7 more.
Yeah, that's be a heck of a run for a team that, like we said, hasn't won back-to-back games twice since Christmas.
It would take like a 2013 run from Tim Miles, like the way they finished that year.
Absolutely.
They beat Wisconsin, who played for the national championship that year.
I'll tell you something though. I've watched Nebraska basketball for a long time. This team is full of confidence right now. Yeah. They're a scary team.
There's a lot to be said for that.
And they get this arena for 3 weeks in a row.
I know. I'm telling you, it's going to get interesting.
It's going to get silly.
Yeah.
It's going to get.
I think it could get.
It's going to get nuts down here.
Maryland. Now, here's the thing. Maryland. That's the game to watch. This game on Sunday. Maryland's good enough to come in here and win. I think if Nebraska wins, it's going to be close. But right now, I would guess Nebraska, but close. I think
Maryland beat Nebraska by 19 earlier this season. Yeah. So,
how many teams will the Big Ten get? 6 or 7, probably. It's not going to be like the 9
I haven't
or
looked
10.
at the latest bracketology. No, it's not going to be like it has been in previous years. Probably more than 6.
6 no matter what.
Yeah, it depends. Is like
6 no matter what.
Is Rutgers going to stay in there? I know they're going to be good, or
Wisconsin,
good to
Penn
go.
State.
Wisconsin, Penn State certainly is one of those. So they have those teams that are normally locks that are still a bit on the fringe right now.
Iowa's kind of in right now, right?
They're in. Yeah, they're in. I'd say Penn State's out.
Wisconsin's probably trending back in.
Rutgers was
Penn State's on the bubble.
Are they on the bubble?
They're on the bubble.
They won against Illinois, right?
Last night they probably got.
Yeah, that was a huge
one
on
the
for
bubble.
them.
Yeah, Rutgers was a 6 seed projected.
They're in, but they went from a comfortable seed to being like in that
play-in game,
8-9 game.
Okay.
There's a lot of teams like that though. The Big East has a bunch of teams like that. ACC. It's going to be interesting how they seed this thing because I feel like after your top 8 teams, the rest, it's pretty close.
Mhm.
Yep.
What do you got next, Ab? We got time for 2 more.
All right. So our next one is probably a clarification question from our last discussion last week. So what's the difference between an offer and a committable offer? And if a guy is an offer, why can't he commit?
Good question. And, in recruiting, you don't get a written offer until I believe your senior year. I mean, so like you verbally offer guys all the way up until they get the official offer in writing. And there's different ways offers are used now. A lot of it is like, can we get this guy on campus? So you say, we're going to offer you, but like in order for this to kind of clear out, you got to meet our head coach. You got to come on campus. We got to be able to make sure you're a good fit. You got to feel like you're a good fit. And that's what you do. When you see Nebraska make 300 offers in a year, a lot of the offers might be in this category, but you also have your board and you have to decide like what offers are good enough to like push that guy up the board and take. And then what other guys might be lower that you want to still kind of keep warm, but you maybe don't want to take right away. So it's a juggling act that the coaching staff has to really manage when it comes to offers.
Good answer, Sean. Good
Anything to
answer.
add?
No.
Offers. All right. Final
Nailed it.
question.
What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
Oh, the one where it was an advertisement for women's football where they're trying to get the flag off of a woman named Flores, I think was her name. And it was an incredibly funny. Like she went into the kitchen of her mom and her mom kind of duped her and tried to get the flag off. And she even beat her mom. It was an incredible commercial. And I thought Rihanna was fabulous.
I like the Tubi one where like it looked like somebody was like sitting on the remote and it like went to like some streaming service and
Yeah,
started
that's
playing Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, that was
Like,
good.
the best part about it wasn't just the commercial, but like the videos, like
Mhm.
Super Bowl party videos that people posted of like people screaming at each other, like, who's on the remote? Get up. Like I
Yeah.
saw one guy tweeted, it's like, I called my mom or my stepmother a name, and now I have
Really?
to try to repair that relationship because I thought she was messing with the remote. Like
That was good.
that commercial messed with some family
Smart.
dynamics.
Yeah, it was
I think.
smart. Sean, your
You know,
favorite, Sean?
I don't know if I had like just one that jumped out.
The Will Ferrell one, where like it was
pretty
just
funny.
nostalgia.
My wife
was
and I
fun.
got a kick that Alicia Silverstone from Clueless did
yeah.
one, and we were like, "Ooh!" But I was cooking and doing stuff, so like when there'd be breaks, I'd get up and come back. So I didn't dial into the commercials.
I never dial into the commercial.
Like-
I was dialed in. I thought they're all pretty good.
I made a bunch of wings on the Traeger though. We had a
That
Nice
boy.
job.
good wing. Did you cook for the bowl?
Yeah, I cook, Sean. I've never cooked anything in my life. I know. I
Like,
don't
do you even cook like macaroni
No.
and cheese? Nothing.
I cook nothing. That's not my job.
So like, what do you do? What do you do? Like,
Job is it?
so what do you eat for dinner? Or I mean, you brought a sandwich.
Yeah, I make a sandwich. That's
Okay.
not cooking.
It's assembling food.
Yeah, I can assemble food.
You can assemble food, but like you don't even make spaghetti or
No.
hamburgers or hot dogs.
I'll go grill. I grill. I'm a good griller.
That's cooking.
Yeah, okay. I grill
That counts.
in the summer.
Remember that place in San Diego for the bowl game where you'd grill your own steak? Did you go to that place with us?
I did not.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't nearly as excited about the concept. Like go to a fancy steakhouse and you have to cook your own steak.
I would call it far from fancy. The name was random though. It's called the Gas Lamp Strip Club.
Yeah.
Hello.
But
Keep that off the old
it's not what you
expensive
think. It's not what you
Yeah.
think.
That was what really I know. I
But we
did
were there.
go.
It was bizarre. We were there with like one night was like Joe Shad, Dirk Chatlin, like a big group of guys. And some of these guys didn't know how to grill a steak.
That's amazing.
And like Joe Shad, I had to show
That's amazing.
Joe
Yeah,
how to
Joe didn't know.
I had to show Joe how to grill a steak.
Hey, you should have punched him too.
He's like, how do you do? I'm like, set a
All right,
timer.
sorry, Abby. Go on.
How do we even get on this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Abby, what was your favorite Super Bowl commercial?
Well, I got a list. Just kidding.
Oh God.
You got a list?
Well, I think my favorite one was the Amazon Prime one with the dogs. Of course, so the storyline is that the dog kind of got left behind after COVID, and he was like destroying their house. And so the Amazon Prime, you can like see them ordering a kennel, and you're like, oh no, they're gonna give their dog away or put him in a kennel, and they got him like a little dog friend. It was cute.
Oh, that's nice.
It was a nice.
That
one.
is
You should
very,
look it up.
very nice.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought the whole production was good. Everything about the Super Bowl was good. The game was great.
I mean, the visual of the halftime show was
it
amazing.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Just like the bells and whistles. And
Rihanna killed it.
now it
Killed it.
destroyed the grass. Did you hear why
Yeah.
the grass? It heated the grass up so bad that it caused like a humidity or moisture.
There was slipping in the
Well,
first,
Especially
half,
on the
too.
paint.
The
Yeah, there
paint-
was flipping it.
But
There
then the
was slipping.
halftime show made the third quarter worse.
Okay.
Is what they said.
All right. Yeah, that was one element of the Super Bowl that was immensely
This is
flawed.
embarrassing.
Was a playing surface. Yeah,
Oklahoma State provided the grass.
right. That's a
They
bad-
tweeted about it before the game, and if you want some quick entertainment, go through the mentions of that one. It's pretty
Okay,
good.
whoever did the grass in Ireland, like those people should do the grass.
Oh,
in
that was
Super
some of the
Bowl.
best grass I've ever seen in my life.
I got the chills thinking about it.
Mm.
That stadium and the grass.
It was like 100-yard putting green, just
Yeah.
beautiful.
And then, like, if you during the week, if you just step foot on there,
oh my god,
and there were like 3 or 4
it's like a
Irish
federal
security
crime out there. I
to
think.
step on the grass.
Aviva Stadium it brings a smile
Beautiful.
to my face to even
Beautiful.
think about it.
The outdoor press box.
Mm.
Yeah.
We had our own private desks out there. Now, the internet situation left a lot to be
A little
desired.
dicey.
My hotspot bill for Spectrum Mobile
Data.
roaming
Rough.
was a rough trip, a couple $100, but
What a beautiful stadium, though. I mean,
Oh.
beautiful.
Feels like 6 years ago, but man, that was
it does feel like.
and when they give you free, we didn't get to enjoy this, but when everyone got a drink for free the entire game, it made even for a better day.
I mean, really, Nebraska screwed that whole thing up. If they win, you were probably going back there pretty soon.
Yes, they were ready to ink the dang deal.
God, and we would the second time around, we'd know what we're doing. Oh my God, it was beautiful.
They haven't even got a 24 game lined up yet. I mean, 23, we know it's Notre Dame, but I'm curious what they're going to do in
2023's Notre Dame
Navy.
Navy.
And we don't know the 2024 game yet. So I'll be curious what they get out there for that.
I'll go back.
I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially if we can get the arrangement we had with our friends in Ireland. I mean,
Yeah,
awesome.
Sean, you just came through in a big way.
All right. Well,
Super fun.
when we come back, we'll close the show with some national talk and discussion. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett as making our way through, guys. Fun show as always. I mean, people always say, God, you guys have a lot of fun. We do. I mean, like legitimately, like I think we all like each other. We have a lot of fun doing these every week.
I kind of like
You kind of like
we're
me.
good at pretending, at least.
You're like, yep,
We can
F
turn it
Sean.
on.
No, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun stuff to talk about. See if we can keep it going.
Now, ESPN came out with their SP Plus Top
Yeah.
25, and it factors in your returning players, your all these variables. It's not just like an eyeball test. There's like a ton of different measuring points they put in this poll. So here's the SP Plus Top 25, which is based on your returners and other things that kind of factor in. Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 3, Alabama number 4, Penn State number 5.
Mhm.
So the Big Ten in this SP Plus poll has 3 of the top 5.
Mhm.
Then working your way down, Wisconsin is at 25. So there are no other Big Ten teams in this poll other than those top 5 teams, and then Wisconsin at 25.
Yeah, the guy having 3 in the top 5 is pretty impressive.
Well, Nebraska only plays one of them, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They only play
Michigan.
Michigan next year.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's sort of the teams you would expect. Oklahoma's fallen out. In fact, I'm a little surprised to see Oklahoma at 14. I mean, Oklahoma was 6-7 last year. But yeah, it's what you'd expect at the top. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama 4. Yeah, but Sean, you're right. Penn State at 5. That raises your eyebrows.
I'm fascinated too, and I'm going to segue. You mentioned Oklahoma. It segues me into my next topic here. What this new Big 12 of 1 year is going to look like next year with UCF, Houston, BYU, all coming into Cincinnati coming into the league only for 1 year with Oklahoma and Texas. And now we know Oklahoma and Texas are going to get out after next year. And a lot of it had to do with Fox, because Fox will lose Oklahoma and Texas. Well, guess what the most valuable games are on the Big 12 television deal with Fox? Oklahoma and Texas games. So that's 8 pieces of property that they had to kind of get negotiated with in order to like get them to leave early, because Fox would have been hosed if they lost that year of inventory. But we'll see Oklahoma play BYU and these teams in Texas. And I mean, I think those teams are going to have a hard time. I mean, I wouldn't. Do you think Oklahoma and Texas, one of those teams, will win the Big 12 next year? I guess that's my
Not
question.
Oklahoma. I mean, again, Oklahoma's 6-7 last year. How much better are they going to be?
Now, Texas is number 1 in this poll right now for the Big 12.
Okay. Oklahoma, did you happen to see what Barry Switzer said about Oklahoma going to the SEC? I mean, it was concern. Oklahoma going to the SEC. He said it's going to be like playing bleeping Texas every week. We better get a lot better defensively. They don't have the dudes up front on defense. I mean, that's one area that I don't know that they have the dudes up front on offense, but Oklahoma is in. I mean, if you're an Oklahoma fan right now, you're concerned.
And here's the quote. I'm concerned. Well, I know what it would look like. It would look like we're playing effing Texas every week.
Right.
You've got to be good. I don't know if we're good enough right now. We got to get better on defense.
Right.
And
they were 125th nationally, I think, in total defense out of 131. Think about that. Oklahoma with Brent Venables was 126 nationally in total defense out of 131.
And, we've lived this here with transitioning from league to league. I think the difference is the Big Ten Nebraska walked into, there was no Harbaugh, there was no Urban Meyer, there was no James Franklin. It was Joe Paterno on his way out the door. It was a fired Jim Tressel year one.
It was Brady Hoke.
So the league, and honestly, Brett Bielema might have been the top of the mountain in the first year. I mean, he had Russell Wilson and Paul Chris as OC. Nick Toon, remember?
Yeah, I mean, Texas, Oklahoma is going to face kind of what Nebraska did, but tougher.
And they're not going to be handed a schedule. I mean, they're going to they're going to be at Alabama and Georgia. I mean, they're going to match those teams up right away.
Yep. It's going to be a grind for them. I mean, that's a pretty massive transition from just style of play in the Big 12, where it's just basically like glorified flag football, and then to the SEC, where okay, maybe that's a little too much, but
harsh.
But I mean that is a massive change to where Nebraska went through that to an extent, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be nearly to the degree of what those schools are going to go through with this current point in time with where their programs are and where the SEC is.
Rob, I'm just trying to imagine right now you saying that with Gundy standing over there. Glorified flag football.
I'd look right into his mullet and say,
Gundy's
you heard
teams,
what I said.
Hey, Gundy's teams are physical. That's a physical defensive line.
K-State's pretty physical.
Rob. That was haughty.
Okay.
Fine. That league's gotten more physical.
Fine. Whatever.
Gundy would take issue with you vociferously.
Yeah, I'll be curious too if they haven't said yet if they'll do 9 conference games. I would assume they're going to have to, and then they can mirror what the Big Ten's going to do, which is a 3-6-6. You have 3 locked in games. Then you rotate 6 on for 2 and 2, and then the other 6 for 2 and 2. Then you play all 15 teams over a 4-year period in all of their stadiums.
Okay.
And that will be a whole other, like the pods of the Big Ten. We don't know like who Nebraska's pod is going to be. We assume Iowa's going to be for sure in the pod.
But we're talking about no divisions.
No divisions with 3 locked in games. And, Scott Dockerman, who's kind of become the schedule czar writer for the Big Ten of the Athletic, they could rotate these pods around. Like, you may, like Nebraska might have Wisconsin in the pod for the first run. Then the next run of the pod, it could be Minnesota. But it's going to probably be Iowa in there.
How many on the pod?
3 teams 4 total teams in a pod.
Okay.
And Iowa is going to be in that pod. We know that. And then Iowa, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, that's going to have to happen. Then I think the LA teams, they're going to have to figure that out. Nebraska is either going to have a locked in LA team.
They'll get UCLA or USC,
And I think they'll get UCLA.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
Hey, right now, UCLA's good. USC and UCLA are formidable right now.
But you could rotate that and say, all right, the first run of the pod, you're going to be at UCLA. The next run of the pod, we're going to give you USC.
If you're a Nebraska fan, I don't know what you're thinking right now. So the division's going away. You can't win a division. And I'd set Nebraska's chances of winning the Big Ten right now in the immediate future 7%, 10%.
A 16-team conference.
Is that being too harsh?
No.
I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Well, okay, what's the NFL? 32 teams?
Yeah.
The Big 10's 16.
Mhm.
So that's like becoming the AFC or NFC champion. Pretty dang hard. The Bills didn't win the AFC. The Bengals didn't win it. The Chiefs did. Those are good teams. So like only one team is going to win this 16 team thing. Kind of like in the NFL, only one team wins the AFC or NFC.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to cycle back to my point.
Okay.
You look at the two best teams in the Big 12.
Yes.
What do they do against the SEC in bowl games?
What?
Got destroyed.
What was
Now K-State,
65-7.
What?
Georgia,
Yeah,
TCU.
Georgia, TCU.
K-State,
45-20. Alabama.
Right. I watched
K-State.
it.
they tussled
watched
with
that game.
Alabama. Then Alabama,
Deshaun.
they stopped them at the goal. K-State was going to go up
Sean,
by
I
double
watched the
digits.
Engaged
game.
Alabama
There was not
team.
a tussle. It was
Yeah.
not a tussle.
It was close.
No,
for
it wasn't a
quarter and
tussle.
half.
That's what I'm
It was
saying.
close for 7 minutes. Alabama's talent differential was startling.
Yes.
It was startling.
Well, and the fact that Saban got all those guys to play in the bowl game,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
They were locked in.
because Bryce Young and the linebacker they had, those guys didn't need to
Will
play.
Anderson.
They
Will
didn't need
Anderson.
to play.
No, they did though. No, it was not much of a game.
All right. Well, gentlemen,
Gentlemen,
I'll be at the bat. You go on the bat. Sip, are we going to see
I
you?
might go because I need a Tuesday column. I might.
I told Robin, I go, you better get the Sipple seat warmed up at PBA.
Yeah, I know.
I've now just so you know, I
gotta
watch these games
Brush
very
the
close.
dust off of it.
No, I see the game better on TV. I do.
Yeah, I could see that.
I do.
Can you get like the notes and stuff like that? Like this is the first win since whatever. Like you get like
get
I noticed that
from
when I
you,
cover
Rob.
road games, like the BTN broadcast, they do a great job of saying like, you know, like this is the first time Nebraska had beaten Rutgers since 2020 in the rack or whatever. Like those are the types of things you don't get when you're sitting on press row. So there's something to be said. for that.
Robin, I got one request. If there's actually a moment where a team calls the timeout because it gets like Nebraska's on a run, instead of the arena playing like some player feature immediately, how about they just play like a song that just keeps it going?
Yes, the script that they just refuse to go off, like stray from, like when Nebraska's going on like a 12-0 run
Against
and
Wisconsin.
the fans are into it, whatever, and then they go to like a picture of like CJ Wilcher drawing Keisei Tominaga.
No, seriously.
That's literally
I
what
mean,
they show.
Like who in their right minds, like, we're going to go to this right now. Like the arena is hopping.
have at least a semblance of sense of what is happening.
I
on
hear.
the
I hear
floor.
you. No, I think you're exactly right.
PBA, though, has been outstanding. The service, the staffing. Trev Alberts and his team have really got that thing cleaned up over there.
It makes a difference. So what you guys are talking about, I went to an Oklahoma City Thunder game a couple years ago, and it was incredible, the production. And if there was a run, they would keep it lively. It was nuts. It was nuts.
I mean, I texted Robin, and his reaction was the same as mine. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, you're on this huge run against Wisconsin, and all of a sudden they like have Keisei Toganama and CJ Wilcher drawing pictures.
Okay.
I even tweeted it, and there was many fans that felt the same way. That it's a real missed opportunity to get some buzz going. That's when PBA's at its best. You got to keep it going.
I agree.
Turn down the what, or what's that song they always like to play?
Turn down for what? Or DMX.
Sean's getting old. Sean is getting old.
Turn down the what?
Clip that. All right.
Wow. Sean,
On that note, I'm getting out of this show now. All right.
old man Sean.
Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you download, subscribe to us on the Husker Online YouTube channel, and check us out at huskeronline.com.